So this morning, to start off, Max Birchwood, who you've all seen up here on stage and elsewhere, the grandfather of youth space here in the UK, will be interviewing fellow director of youth space, Carly, and I think we're in for a real treat. So Max, I think you guys are all mic'd up. Are you ready to rock?
I think we are. You can all hear us.
Great stuff.
Hopefully.
When they're finished, there'll be time for a few questions afterwards too. So with that.
Thank you very much, Jim, and thank you, everyone, and good morning. Well, I think we've just heard in the declaration there, service co-design and co-production with young people is a very strong theme in the conference, and this is something which I know you, Carly, are very passionate about.
I am, yes.
So we thought it would be really nice for folks to be able to share your passion and to hear about the kind of work that you've been doing in designing and developing services in the UK, in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So where should we start? Well, I'll tell you what, I think folks would love to know a bit more about you. So do you just want to perhaps say a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah,
and so?
I'm 26 and I've been experiencing mental health since I was about 13.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been involved with various different mental health services throughout the past, 13 years.
Uh-huh.
And then I got involved with youth space about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I've been doing a lot of good work with them.
So I think you're on the you're an ambassador on the youth board.
Yes.
What's all that involve? Tell us.
It's about young people actually making a difference to youth services. We work in partnership with the NHS.
Uh-huh.
And we consult with them on different practices, we helped, for example, open a ward, which I'll talk about a bit more later.
Okay.
We get involved with many different projects, all about making a difference for youth mental health services.
Okay, lovely, good. Well, we'll cover a little bit of that as we proceed. I know you've said you've had a lot of experience of mental health services. Yes. I mean, is there anything that you want to say initially about what strikes you about that experience and what that's taught you over, a few years now?
I think it's taught me that mental health services have got a lot to learn.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of good mental health services out there, but then there's a lot of time where they're not quite reaching the standard that they need to be at.
Mm-hmm. Go on, tell us.
For example, there's often big problem with being a late response. It's only when you've got a really serious problem or you're in a serious crisis that you're able to access the right help and support, mm-hmm. which is never good. And then once you're in a service, they're either not really tailored to young people, especially if you fall between the sort of 18 to 25 age bracket, where you're not really an adolescent anymore, but you're not an adult. Mm-hmm. And then there's sometimes an issue with staff not having the right kind of training. Okay.
Well, should we just take each of those at a time? You were saying about your experience of services for, between 15 and 25 not being quite attuned to the needs of young people. Do you want to just tell us a bit more about that and maybe some of your own experiences?
Yes, they're often quite a scary place to be in. They're often very clinical wards. Mm-hmm. They don't make you feel very relaxed and it's a very stressful time, and you need to really have a feeling that the place you're in is a happy and place where you're going to be able to recover. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these places aren't designed with that in mind. Mm.
And so you've had direct experience
of
that kind of... So as a young person, what was it like? Because I think you were on a inverted commas adult ward for a while, was that?
Is that
right?
It was the ward I was in was very scary actually. It was a very old-fashioned ward. Normally I've been on other wards and they're all key cards. Mm-hmm. This ward had keys on chains, so it had a very prison feel to it.
My goodness me.
And so it was very, very scary. It was all no colour, I'm trying to think of the right word, no personality to the ward. It was very bland, very boring. It didn't feel like the kind of place that you were going to have any enjoyment. I did in the end.
So how did that environment make you feel as a young person?
It took a long time to get used to it. It was only with the sort of support from family and friends coming in that I actually started to relax and sort of get the best out of being on the ward and actually settling into the treatment that I needed.
And you mentioned, I think, about some of your experiences with staff, some good things and some not good things.
Yeah, I've had some lovely members of staff that really, want to be there and really want to make a difference to the young people and the patients that they're working with. But then there's others that are sort of slightly lacking in the right way to deal with, I think, especially young people. For example, I once got upset in a session and cried.
Yeah.
And was then asked to leave.
You were asked to leave?
Yes.
Because?
Because I was crying.
Because you were crying. How terrible, how awful of you to cry when you're in.
Yes. Very inconsiderate of me.
So that was a kind of bizarre situation. How did you understand that?
I didn't know what to think. I actually left the service, didn't go back, and it was then a couple of years before I actually felt ready to go back and be a part of the service. So I went a couple of years without any treatment whatsoever.
Because of that experience?
Because of it, I just thought, wow, I didn't know if I'd be able to go into another session and not sort of get emotional. So I thought, oh, maybe it's best if I just don't talk about it then.
Dear, that's appalling, isn't it? So that the first thing you would expect in a service is the ability to tell people and share with people
and
how
anything
you feel.
And in any way, really, that you'd expect that you'd be able to. It's a very emotional time. There's a lot of emotion running through your body, and I would expect that you'd be able to release some of that and not be chastised for it.
Okay. Well, we're talking a little bit. I know you've been involved in helping to design a bespoke unit for young people. So we can perhaps be really interesting to hear a bit more about that presently. I know you're really passionate about youth mental health and all the things that we've heard in the declaration. You are kind of nodding away there, very important to you. I mean, where does that come from for you? I mean, what is it that's driving you?
I think it's having.
We need more people like you, you see, and it's just really interesting to know, where that all comes from.
I think it started with the fact that I had a couple of bad experiences myself, and sort of if there's a way to stop other people from experiencing that, then that's, I think, always a good position to be in.
Right.
And then I think after joining the youth board and being involved with the things they do and seeing that if you do actually get your voice out there, then a difference can be made. I think it's quite a positive feeling. You feel quite empowered.
Right, okay. Again, we'll just in a few minutes, I know you've been involved in some really good projects, and I'm sure folks will be really interested to hear what you've been doing. Come back to that in a minute, if we could, if that's okay. I know you met some really senior folks at the departments of the UK Department of Health recently who are interested to find out about the work that you've been doing and so on. Who were those people? Do you remember?
You might have to help me out here. I'm a bit terrible with names.
Is it Mark Walport? So Mark Walport, I think, was one of the guys, who's senior
researcher,
senior scientist in the Department of Health. And
I think it was Orla O'Brien.
Yeah, permanent Undersecretary at the Department of Health. They came on some grand visit to the unit and so on. So what did you make of all that?
It was very interesting. They were very eager to learn about not only the youth board but the youth-based clinical team. They wanted to know, especially about the fact that we focus on early intervention and often short-term interventions, not sort of having young people embroiled into a mental health service for the rest of their life just because they need help at one specific time.
And what was their reaction to that?
They were very interested to hear. There was obviously a few questions raised by it, but they were very interested to hear what we were doing and how we were doing it, and how that was actually going to make a difference to mental health services.
Okay, so I mean, what advice did you give them? I mean, what were the main things that, because they were quizzing you quite a bit, I think, and you were very vocal at that meeting. But what was the main bit of thing? What are the main things that you wanted to get across to them?
The main thing really in terms of the clinical side was the fact that it's all about early intervention really. The sooner you can get people help, the less their problems are hopefully going to develop, which is important, and they'll get the right help and treatment at the right time. And also that the fact that the intervention isn't always about a mental health service, it can also be about mental well-being in general and signposting them to other services that need be. And also that it's only with the help of young people that you're ever going to get services that actually meet young people's needs.
Right, and that's fascinating. And this is the first time they'd encountered these, well, I suppose that's part of the reason why they came in the first place, I guess. But
yes, I think there's a few groups out there that do similar things, but I think they were very interested to see how we were doing it, why we were doing it, and why we were being quite successful in being listened to.
Well, I think you obviously did a good job there, because they went away really very inspired by what you had to say to them. Just moving on a little bit, Carly. There's a lot spoken about youth involvement and working in partnership with services. We spoke a little bit about that already. I mean, could you just perhaps give us your take on how you think this should ideally work in most services?
It's about giving young people a voice, not having them there as a token, you know, to say, oh, well, we're supported by young people, look, we've got one. It's about giving them young people a voice and then actually taking action on what they say. There's no point in them being there unless they're actually going to be listened to. So you've got to take their advice and their opinions and actually put that into practice. Right, right. And you mentioned earlier about some members of staff that you encountered, that many very supportive and very, obviously very, many individuals very warm and were very supportive, but others who perhaps needed some further. Yes, needed a bit. Is there a role for young people in training of staff? Or? I think definitely. I think I'll probably talk a bit more later about the ward that we're involved with, but I think young people definitely. I think young people should be involved with the hiring of staff, and then later the training that staff are given, so that it's actually being tailored to the needs of the young people they're going to be working alongside. Right, right. That's fascinating. So, what form would, as a matter of interest, what form might that take, that kind of staff training? What is it? It can be anything. It can be having a group of young people look over the policies that are put in place. It can be meeting with young people to talk about what issues the young people have and what the young people feel is important for the ward and for the way staff act towards them. Right. It can come in many different formats. It's about finding one that works for both the staff and the young people. Well, that's perhaps a very nice segue into enabling us to share with folks your experiences of developing a new unit in Birmingham, which is Japonica. Yes. So, do you want to perhaps just share with folks what that initiative's all about? And yes, the youth board helped design a new ward at the Oliester. It was about making that ward a place where young people, you know, they've got no choice often to be there, but it's making it a place where they feel comfortable, safe and secure. So a lot went into the design of it. They were also helped interview staff. They sat on a panel of people interviewing staff and had their input into that, and they also ran a training day for these staff. All right, all right. So tell us a bit more about the first bit, about the design of the place and so on. Is that what you were saying, about input into the design? So tell us a bit more, what does it look like? What's the feel of the place now? What's important? It's just a lot more youth-friendly. It's just got the feeling, it doesn't look so clinical. All right. It's just got the feeling of a place that you'd want to be. So did you have you guys have a hand in, you know,
look at designing what goes on the walls and the furniture and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, lovely. So, and you said about staff training and what was the other thing you were saying about? I think you had oh yes, staff selection.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about that. How did that go?
It's just about having the young people's voice. I think young people know what they're looking for in a member of staff. And I think that other staff aren't necessarily looking for the same thing. So
Right.
having the voice of a young person sitting on a panel to say, well, I thought that person was brilliant because X, Y, Z, is the way that you're going to get staff that are going to work for both the setting and then for the young people that are going to be involved with that service.
Right, right. And so that was a good experience.
It was very positive, yes.
Yeah. And you said also about, we've touched on this already, about involved in the staff development and staff induction.
Yes.
Do you want to say a bit more about that?
It was just a training day designed by the youth board, just to give staff a feeling of the sort of ideas that young people have for the way that they feel their needs can be met inside the unit.
So this was a day-long event, was it, or training program?
Yes.
So this was all designed by the youth board,
By
is that
the
right?
youth board, yes.
Great. So anything else that strikes you from that training? That's a very unusual.
No, I just think it's a very positive. It's a positive way of going about it, and I think it's positive that that the youth board were allowed to be involved with something like that, because I think it sets a precedent that shows that young people are being listened to and that they are being taken seriously.
Okay, and it's the kind of thing I know you shared with the visitors the other week. So I know that you've been involved in some other projects. And this is the kind of interesting thing about the youth board. It's like you were saying earlier,
Yes,
it's not
it's
just
several
advisory
different projects.
and saying, sitting on a committee and that kind of thing, but it's actually being involved and developing projects and developing facilities and equipment and so on to support young people. So I know there's a couple of things we were going to talk about. So I think you're involved in the website.
Yes.
Do you want to share with that?
The youth board, helped design the website, the look of it, the feel of it, the sort of content that went into it. And then alongside that, we've got a Twitter page and a Facebook page.
All right.
So which the young people are involved with updating and keeping fresh. It's very much about what they think should be included on it.
And I think there's quite a lot of videos and that, like we've seen this morning.
It's a very interactive website. There's lots of videos, lots of places, lots of signposting to where you can get help, a lot of information about different conditions.
Okay.
And it's just sort of very easy to navigate, very user-friendly.
Yeah. So, and isn't I just to recall, there's something called Google Mapping or something that the youth board have done. Is that right?
Yes, we went round and looked at various services, not just mental health services, but any service that a young person would use. Then they were put onto Google Maps, and then a little video was done to sort of show how it works, how that service works.
All right, so like a TripAdvisor for young people's
services.
services.
I suppose you could call it that.
A kind of rating. So you'd actually gone to these services and experienced them and got reviews of them.
And the young people did even the filming for them videos. They were the presenters in the videos.
So folks can access that?
Yes, on the website, yes.
And the website address is?
www.youthspace.me.
.me. Okay, lovely. So just a couple more things, projects that you've been involved in. I know you've been involved in the psychosis awareness campaign.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
That was a very interesting public health campaign. The young people were involved in the design of the posters that were used in that campaign.
Okay.
The sort of what should be included. They were very much involved in sort of what the general message should be. And one of the big things that came out was especially in teenagers, that psychosis is often just fobbed off as, oh, don't worry, it's just a phase, you'll get over it.
Yeah, because you developed some really striking images, didn't you?
Yes.
You want to describe those a bit?
Yes, they're a poster of somebody's face, and then there's a little over the mouth, there's a little yellow panelling with different bits of information. So sort of it's not a phase, is this normal?
Yeah, so
That
I think
kind
you'd
of
be
thing.
designing stuff that went on buses and all
Yes,
that.
this was used on buses, on billboards, it was put up in GP surgeries. It's very, very useful, powerful campaign.
Yeah, yeah, good. Well, perhaps folks could chat to you later about that if they want to. I know the youth board has a very strong link with the Prince's Trust.
Yes.
Perhaps just well, you can tell folks what the Prince's Trust is and so on.
Yes, the Prince's Trust is an organisation that works to get young people back into employment and into training. And the youth board like to be involved with that because youth space like to be involved with that because it's not just about looking after your mental health, it's about looking after your mental well-being.
All right.
I thought of if you can get the balance of them both, one impacts on the other immensely.
Yes, because that's an interesting partnership because the Prince's Trust is an NGO in the UK that's really involved in social inclusion programs, getting young folks into employment and training and so on. So that partnership, I think, is very strong.
Yes, it's a very useful tool. It's, it really benefits the young people, and it sort of helps, if they're having a rough time. The Prince's Trust programme is designed to sort of support them, get them through, get them into training, get them back on track so their life, is still functioning while they're going through a difficult time.
Okay. Well, look, just the last couple of things. This has been fabulous. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things about the internet there. I mean, social media, a very powerful tool. I mean, I know you have some views about the role of the internet and so on, and some of its positives and also maybe some of its dangers.
Yes,
what are your thoughts about that?
I think it can be. I think there's always going to be dangers with the internet and social media because it's very hard to police. But I think it can also be a very powerful tool for good, especially with things like Twitter, like we've been using at this event, at this conference. It's a powerful way and a fast way to get information out there for millions of people to see. And the same with things like groups having Facebook pages. It raises your profile, gets your information out there for people to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and there's some of the possible dangers or concerns?
I think the main danger is it's the fact that it can't be policed. People can put things up there that you don't want people to be reading. And I think there can be often websites that aren't designed to give people the right help. But I think you've got to take the positives with the negatives, I think. As long as there are good websites for people to access, and you've just got to hope that they'll be the websites that they find and not the ones that aren't very useful.
Okay, well, no doubt folks might want to pick up on that. So how's the conference been for you?
It's been fantastic. I've really, really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure being here. It's been fantastic getting to meet with other organisations that do a similar thing to Youth Space. It's been really interesting. It's been fantastic to see what other people are doing so well and how they do that and what sort of ways they go about doing it. Like we did a workshop on Monday.
You did a joint workshop with
Group,
Headstrong?
Yeah. And the group from Australia. Sorry, I cannot. Headspace. And it was just fantastic, really. It was so many different ideas about the way they go about doing things. And it was just fantastic to meet other people and know that you're not alone in what you're doing.
So was there any ideas that you picked up that you think we should, that you're going to take back home there from that workshop?
There's one idea about an inpatient buddy system.
All right.
And that idea really struck me because I think it's such a fantastic idea to give young people the support of another young person while they're in such a difficult time.
All right, so maybe something like on the ward that you were designing, that's something that perhaps take back there. So, okay, what's the let's perhaps conclude now. I mean, you've enjoyed the conference.
Yes,
I mean,
it's been
what would
fantastic.
you like folks to, you know, the main message, or messages that you'd like folks to leave the conference with?
I think the main message that I want people to go home with is the fact that the only way that we're going to reshape youth mental health services is by getting young people involved. Young people are the only people that are going to be able to tell you what they want for their services, and that's the only way these young people are going to stay engaged.
Well, it's interesting that there's a lot of youth participation, youth partnership groups that you've met. I mean, they're all literally in 4 corners of the globe.
Yes.
So how it'd be really, you were saying earlier that it would be nice to
yeah,
get
it'd be
these
fantastic to get a little network going. We've made some brilliant contacts, and think if we could brainstorm some idea to get them all working in partnership, sort of idea sharing and things, it'd just be a powerful tool.
I think that's right. Listen, Carly, that's been fabulous. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem,
and,
thank you.
It's not an easy thing to sit here in front of all these folks on 9 o'clock in the morning and talk about these things in such a, if I may say, such an eloquent and passionate way. So can I thank you for agreeing to be interviewed this morning, and also thank you very much for all the hard work that you and the Youth Board have put into developing the services in Birmingham.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.